Michael said, "La passive, aggressive James has arrived." LeBron made it pretty clear. And we're going to talk about this, Donnie. We'll get into the big picture topic in just a moment. But LeBron made it pretty clear that that the Lakers don't have a margin for error right now. He's not wrong. But this is also like you can almost set your watch to it. Like this is the right time of year for LeBron to make these kind of comments with just weeks to go until the trade deadline.
Yeah, you're right. I'll always come back to the time where they weren't able to get, what was it, Kyrie, and it's just maybe it's me. I always come back to that. Maybe it's me. If we end this deadline and there's not like a big trade, do we get maybe it's me part 2? Like
we would just get some kind of emoji that would be perfectly placed.
Yeah. But no, it's time, and I actually don't really mind him doing it, if I'm being honest. I feel like they're kind of just sitting on their hands, twiddling their thumbs, whatever, just waiting, talking about reevaluating the roster, seeing how these players look that are going to come back eventually healthy. I understand why they'd be frustrated if they've been wanting trades for so long, especially if there were promises prior.
If you are Rob Pelinka, does this make your job more difficult, though? Right? I mean, like if I'm an opposing GM and I'm talking to Rob Pelinka, I'm taking a screenshot of LeBron's quote and texting it to him and saying the price just went up.
Yeah. Well, part of that's also why I think Rob is going to just like try to play the field and make everybody happy and go. He's going to go like, okay, Jeannie, I'm not going to give up any first round picks. LeBron, guess what? I made a trade for you. We got X player. All right, everything's perfect. It's not going to be a crazy deal. I'm not going to give out any of my first. We're going to keep this going. We're going to kick the can down the road again for the 5th time, and everyone's going to be happy, I guess. That's what he's probably going for. But I mean, you'd have to hope that that's not the case with like the price going up, but I imagine it is. And I imagine that every time this happens, Rob is just like, God damn it. Why do you have to do that? I was on the 1-yard line for this trade, and now they're asking me for 3 more second-round picks.
No, he said, "Oh my! I was just about to get onto Space Mountain, and now I get this message. Come on." I mean, I think it doesn't make his job easier, but I also think LeBron's not wrong. Yeah. They don't have much of a margin for error. And let's remember, LeBron was just agreeing with what JJ Redick said as far as them not having much of a margin for error with this situation. Now, LeBron added in the bit about that's how the roster is constructed. Mm-hmm. But again, we knew this from the summertime. We knew this from back in the summer that the Lakers were not constructed properly, that they needed to make moves, they needed to shake some things up. And now, again, the pressure is on them to do something. LeBron did put pressure on them last year, though, and they also didn't do anything at the trade deadline. Yeah. They've already made one move and getting Dorian Finney-Smith, but clearly that's not enough.
Yeah, they've shown that it doesn't really faze them to the degree you would think it does. Probably mostly because of the way that previous trade went for them and how scared they are to make any other deals. The trade a few years ago. But yeah, they've shown that it's not the biggest deal to them. So if they're willing to, they'll just kick the can down the road again. Remember last year, because they hadn't made a trade until the Dorian Finney trade, they hadn't made a trade since that trade where they sent Westbrook out, basically 2 years. And you factor the offseason, in-season opportunities for trades, et cetera. It had been a long time. But remember last year when they were approaching, part of the reason they didn't make the trade is because they slid so heavily after that in-season tournament. And it felt like Rob was just like, this is a lost cause. And so they don't make any trades. But then Rob comes back with promises. Oh, in the offseason, we'll have these many picks.
We'll have
and all
3
this
picks.
Yep. And we'll be able to, use them there. And we're still looking like, hey, what's kind of going on with these picks you said you'd be trying to trade? Now you're saying we want guys, if we're going to give up both of these, we want guys that can be a part of sustained excellence going forward and all this stuff. He's kind of like always trying to play both sides, which is just, it's weird. I really feel like they should pick a direction, but it's not just that simple. Like we talked about on the live show last night, there's monetary business incentives as to why they wouldn't want to reset this stuff. And fans don't really care much about it, but that is the logistics of the business and why things are the way that they are. But from the player perspective, you'd hope that if you've got the guys that they have, they go all in instead of always 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Now, that being said, I do think in the trades he has made, Rui, Vando, those guys, even the DFS trade. I think those have all been good value trades for the most part.
Mhm.
There's some little stuff in there like opportunity cost, like the D'Lo one, which I think
Sure.
does matter. But I think he's found a way to pull a rabbit out of a hat with some of these trades he's pulled off.
Yeah, I mean, he's made a few good moves. I think when I step back, part of the issue, and two things here when you step back. Number one, it's how are they in this spot when they have two, what if worst top 15 players?
Yeah,
They shouldn't be in that spot
absolutely.
to begin with. They should be in the spot where, oh my gosh, they have to do something. Otherwise, they've got no shot. But part of that also is when we look at the value that's been passed down the line, it really hasn't been moved on well enough. You gave up a first in the Russell Westbrook trade, plus very valuable trade assets and players. Then you had to give up a first to get Russell Westbrook off your team. And you got Malik Beasley. He turned into nothing, right? Well, I guess technically he turned into the cap space used to have a full MLE to give to Gabe Vincent. Did that work out? Not necessarily. He's improving though. Gabe Vincent is. And then Jared Vanderbilt. We're not sure yet if he's a real person. We'll see if he's going to be in a basketball game this year or not. Maybe he will return in a few days. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And then D'Angelo Russell, you added 3 second-round picks to him to get Dorian Finney-Smith. So, like, from the Russell Westbrook trade, you've just continued to sacrifice. I mean, what is that? 2 first-round picks, multiple second-round picks that have gone down this road to turn essentially Russell Westbrook or the pieces they had, Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, to turn that into Dorian Finney-Smith and Jared Vanderbilt, and I guess to a roundabout degree, Gabe Vincent. That's just not a great progression. It's not like he flipped a paperclip and kept trading it up and wound up turning it into a Lamborghini or something like that. If anything, he's traded down quite a bit to get to where they're at now.
You went down one branch, but there's multiple branches you can go down where it's
Absolutely.
like the Mo Bamba, Pat Beverly into nothing, God. The THT into nothing, which is a part of that too. But Caruso opportunity cost there, like it's just there's a lot of different ways you could go with this. Where like just they're paying the price for it because they rely on some guys that on an actual contender would be no better than like the 6th or 7th man.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how their team is.
All right, let's get back into the chat here. Let's go.
They've been arguing about trying to get Jeremy Grant, by the way.
Jeremy Grant. Oh boy. We'll talk about him in just a minute. Trinity, thoughts on a trade for the Spurs with the Knicks, who are probably going to be sellers at the deadline? Chris Paul. I mean, I don't know. The Spurs are going to be sellers at the deadline. Bassey and Wesley for Mitchell Robinson and a second. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting for the Spurs, I think, to put a big like Mitchell Robinson next to Wemby. I wouldn't hate that. I don't know if they're going to move on from Chris Paul, who's provided some really good veteran leadership, and the Spurs have been in the thick of things in the Western Conference. I do think the Spurs are going to be buyers. Are the Knicks? You're saying the Knicks are going to be sellers? If the Knicks are going to be sellers, it would be with Mitchell Robinson, but they also need to kind of replace Mitchell Robinson with another Mitchell Robinson. So, I mean, Bassey can do some stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Does Chris Paul make the Knicks significantly better? Because they're not trying to get worse right now. The Knicks are trying to improve and get better. I don't know if this is the move for them. From what we've seen, they would want to turn Mitchell Robinson into like a Jonas Valanciunas or so, another big that can take on that role and take some of the burden off of Cat.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, they could always use another veteran guard in their system, but that should not be their priority. The team definitely needs another backup big. Sometimes they get good minutes from Sims or Achua and stuff like that, but getting a more consistent backup big that they can rely on for 10 to 15 minutes, I think should be the goal. And, Tibbs already is playing his guys a crazy amount of minutes. I can't imagine what he's going to do in the playoffs. So even then, I kind of feel like you don't necessarily need to go all in on a trade in the first place.
Yeah.
You have time. Like we talked about it in the Mitchell video. It's still a little weird that it's like, oh, he's going to be coming back early February, but that's so close to the deadline and you have to make a decision. If your decision winds up being, you know what, we'll give him time as long as they're able to maintain health. And I know Cat's dealing with the injury as well right now. So it's maybe speeding up the timeline of what they need for another big right now. But if they can get healthy towards the end of the season, get out there and, play, I think that they'd be fine as is. I don't know that they have to make a deal.